Thank you very much, Francis, for setting the scene. Thank you very much for your attention and being here. I am Shima Beigi. I have a PhD in resilience of complex adaptive systems. And I have been working on basically in the intersection of complexity, mindfulness, and extension of mindfulness and mystical experience to the technological world. And today I am presenting an aspect of our recent theory, the local field theory of consciousness, which I call it shortly LEFT or LFT. I put this slide of School of Fish at the background of this presentation on purpose because I wanted to emphasize the paradigm we're coming from. Normally, what we had so far has been based on the mechanical point of view, top-down point of view, and I think Newtonian point of view and reality and model of reality. That is looking at the world in a very, I think, mechanical way. And I believe the hard problem of consciousness, part of it, it's called hard because it stems from that paradigm. So by having a complex adaptive point of view, our aim is to include the subjective experience, not as some phenomena, but some sort of useful evolutionary information that is required to understand consciousness. I mean, going back to the notion of consciousness, its origin means knowing together. And I believe that togetherness is the missing component of current theories of consciousness. Important theories of consciousness that have influenced our thinking. Francis briefly spoke about the adaptive resonance theory, or ART, which generally refers to the theory of cognitive information processing, and to an inclusive family of neural models. This is highly linked to how we can make machines more capable of showing consciousness in the bandwidth of consciousness reaction models. The global workspace refers to the idea of how a large collection of information gathered by the brain can be formulated in a work space that is promoted and is, I think, it's at the backbone of it acts as a backbone of our thinking as well. And then last but not least, predictive processing, which is a theory that pictures the brain as a hypothesis testing, machine matching, perceptual hypothesis, which is generated by internal hierarchical models with inputs coming through sensory channels. I think this is also very important aspect of our thinking, has been an important aspect of our thinking. So I think what's very important in understanding consciousness studies is to look at where the motivation behind all of this theory comes from. So for the global workspace, the underlying question is that how does a serial, integrated, and very limited stream of consciousness emerge from a nervous system that is mostly unconscious, distributed, parallel, and of enormous capacity? So basically, this theory assumes that one single organism, that is our brain, is the main organ behind generation of consciousness, which can be true, but at the same time, maybe there is more to that. The adaptive resonance is mainly looking at this internal, basically trying to unlock the black box of this global workspace, if you like. So in a sense, I would like to imagine them as some sort of a stack, basically model of Russian doll, each of them trying to shine light to the aspects of the previous theory. Then the predictive processing, which basically looks at this discrepancy between what organisms sense internally between what's happening outside world. So, and then measuring that and then assuming that as some sort of important predictor of consciousness. Yes, I actually turn off my camera on purpose because I think I feel more kind of focused on the slides. Not, I feel more confident like this. The local field theory. So when we were thinking about local field theory, I was very much inspired by one of the conversations me and Francis we were having on telephone about the hard problem of consciousness. And I was very, very surprised and inspired by a suggestion Francis made of what if we could provide a soft solution to the hard problem of consciousness. And I think that was the beginning of all this in this journey of what actually we can do to not only understand consciousness, but also, as I think the time we're living in right now is a very, I think, special times. I think what we do as scientists is very important in terms of providing a toolkit or a way for people and ourselves to live better lives, to live more meaningfully. And hopefully with this local field theory, our objective and mission is that how we can provide a soft solution to the hard problem of consciousness by tapping into subjective experiences. So turning individual experiencers as active consciousness creators, going back again to the notion of consciousness, knowing together. So which means that if you are just trying to think about consciousness on your own, you're not doing consciousness, you're probably doing some solutiousness on your own. So there is no consciousness as the meaning, as the original word suggests. So our main question is that can we develop a model for quality of consciousness to promote living a life, to promote living life more meaningfully, or having a more meaningful life. So this is not to have a religious standpoint, but to have also include those dimension of religious or mystical experiences that touch in the or fall under the fold of subjective experience. So in a sense, providing some systemic holistic view. So in our worldview, so far, and this is subject to change, so really bear with us, is that consciousness is distributed and embedded, meaning that is distributed, meaning is that is consciousness, knowing together. One person cannot have a consciousness experience on its own without having a direct, intimate relationship with the world outside. So local fields are by consciousness experiences, by you and other people on this, for example, stage, by other people on the world. Therefore, local fields are formed constantly by experiencers, and they're therefore inherently are not rigid. So basically, I would like to suggest that there is no hard problem of soft consciousness. Consciousness by nature is soft because it's consciousness, it's experienced by others. So there is a togetherness involved in it. And by that, therefore, is primed for evolution, meaning that it has to change. If it's not changing, again, you're just not an autopoietic system, meaning that your boundaries are not open for information. Local fields formed by experiencers act like interfaces, meaning that what you are cultivating in your own subjective experience based on your own worldview acts as an interface. You show up to the world, you act from that point of view and that point of interface. I don't know, I think there is a microphone that is on, or is there a question, or if I can ask to mute the microphone, because I think it's just facts. Okay. So I think I am on my, this is the kind of like maybe one more I have, which is kind of a futuristic slide. I think the most important slide of the presentation, which I think I would like to bring more voices to this, because again, this is consciousness, knowing together, doing together, understanding it together. So the local field, can I measure it? And I so far come up with this stack model of different elements of different theories, like theory that was on many years of basically research done on in physics. So here again, having that point of view of kind of building on. So so again, can we measure it? Yes. I think there are three important components that are really valuable in this kind of, that provide the most value in measuring our model. First of all is the position of awareness, to know the flow of attention. What do I mean by that? I take a lot of flow theory and focus and study strategy, how people actually budget their focus. I think wherever your attention goes, basically, wherever your attention goes, your awareness is formed in that direction. So can you hear me? Hello?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Very poorly, I must say.
Maybe the connection isn't very stable here, I think. So I go quickly so we can discuss it later from the Francis laptop. I think computer, I think, is better connection. Then the subjective reporting of personal statements. So again, engaging the consciousness experiences into the model. And then physiological markers such as neural activity. Here we can bring more of voices that are very active in the field. And then finally, I think we can develop a consensus qualitative map with suggestion to modify subjective experiences. Again, going back to consciousness, knowing together, studying it together. And then hopefully being able to prime for transcendental and mystical experiences, but not, again, engineering those experiences, but priming people by setting the scene for having higher, better experiences. Last but not least, I probably with local field, our hope is to be able to have peaceful coexistence of AI and mankind intelligence. So by that, I mean that with the local field of theory of consciousness, we can find a clear boundaries between the degree of the artificiality of machines and decide ways or pathways to make them aligned with human values. I stop here because I think my connection isn't stable. I go upstairs to join Francis and then listen to others and then hopefully take some questions. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you.
Questions for clarification? Everybody is thinking. Bernd, you have a question?
Yes, hi everybody. First of all, I'm back once in a while. It's not clear to me, you speak about a field, but a field of what?
Well, the field of subjective experience. So your subjective experience, the field is that you're forming your subjective experience in a field that you're experiencing it, and that field is your subjective experience. So the field refers to the boundaries around your subjective experience.
Let me maybe add something, because I try to say that it's easy to misunderstand this field as a physical field that consists of something. Maybe a better term would be something like a visual field. That means the range of things you can see. It is the range of things that your consciousness considers as potentially relevant to happen. So it's a range of potential next steps. It's not a field of physical things. It's a kind of a cognitive or mental field.
Yeah. Well, I would suggest informational field. I think that's more what you're getting at.
Information is not enough. Information is an aspect of it, but the problem with information, it's always a selection. Well, selection here is in there, but there is also the force factor. That means there's a value. It's not neutral. It's not saying it's this, it's that. No, it is this maybe going in this direction. This may be going in this direction. This should go in this direction. This should not go in that direction. it is not just information, there is the intrinsic dynamics in there, that things are driven, that things are directed, that there is a process in there.
So what about stating up front that you're using a metaphor, so that you're using language in a metaphorical manner?
No, because it's not just a metaphor, it is a conceptual model that, as I said, can become a mathematical model. And then, I mean, a field is a concept which I have chosen because it can be expressed mathematically. I can define a space of potentials, and in that space put certain vectors of where the next one will go. So it is more than a metaphor.
But are you not using orientational metaphors in everything that you say, like a model that is like a physical reconstruction of something abstract? Mathematics itself is full of metaphors. I'm just trying to point out an opportunity. It's not.
No, I mean, of course we are using metaphors.
Well, that's the point.
It's more than a metaphor. I mean,
Jerry,
you can't use language without using metaphors. So in that sense, yes, of course we are using metaphors, but we're using more than metaphors.
Jerry had a question.
Yes, you're using a lot more than metaphors. Metaphors are a way to induce remarkable vagueness into conversations that otherwise have deep and meaningful content, at least to me. So that's my feeling about the concept of metaphor, which is opposed or which is contrary to the notion of realism in the natural sciences, and particularly the syntax and semantics that are used in the natural sciences. And this is where my question comes up. In the presentation, insofar as I followed it, to what extent can these global workspaces be divided or separated or partitioned into different symbol systems, into different scientific symbol systems, into different scientific languages that connect the macroscopic with the microscopic?
Well, in principle, you could say the model is a kind of a high-level abstraction of the neural activity. So potentially, if you would have very detailed mapping of all the neural activity, you could do some kind of a factor analysis on it to reduce it to a number of components that's small enough to fit onto a local field model. And that could be possibly one way to connect it to the level of the description of neural activity, but you could have other models.
Are you asserting that there's some sort of connection between the logic of mathematics and the biological notion of a neuron?
Well, the neuron can, of course, always be modeled mathematically. That does not mean that it's a good model, but that is what modeling is about. You could, for example, look at the activity, the degree of activity of a particular neuron and give it a number and like that describe it.
And what would that number mean in mathematics? I find this to be, your answer I find to be closely associated or entangled with the notion